have the irregular block pattern. Buildings are typically different.
Well, me multitasking. I was checking to see if they were broadcasting.
Yeah.
I
think we're good now. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So Steve Shabbat, can you take down the
We're ahead.
yeah, you got the reports. Good. All right. So if you'll just take down who moves and who seconds. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we'll call this meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee to get going here at 6:43 on June 8th, 2022. Welcome, everybody. Let's get right into it. Only 14 items on the budget, with some that have actually several items within the items. So the first item, of course, is the report from our comptroller. John, tell us how we're doing.
Thanks, Rennie. Well, we continue to do well. I gave everyone a copy of the sales tax printout and the narrative. Not a lot's changed since the prior month in terms of the expenditure accounts that we're seeing pressure in. We continue to see pressure in vehicle fuel, overtime pay. We still have vacancies in terms of our departments, so we're seeing some positive variances with salaries, but we're seeing pressure on the overtime side. Most of the expenditure accounts are running within budget or at budget. Rennie, as you and I discussed earlier on the phone, what we're really seeing is a very significant trend in sales tax. I'll get into it later in the night when we talk about last year's report, but this year, if you look at your sales tax printout, you'll see that we are $920,000 over where we were last year. And if you remember, last year we finished 20% over 20% over the prior year. So what does that mean? What it means is we have a budget of $16,250,000. We are on pace to exceed that number significantly. It's very early in the year to give you a hard number, but if we were to continue at this on the same pace, we would end up at 21.7. Our budget is 16.2. If the receipts for the rest of the year came in at the same levels they did last year, which is still up over the prior year, we would come in at 19.4. So you're looking at a variance somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million plus. Once again, it's all predicated on sales tax receipts continuing to come in strong. The economy is still performing. We are seeing a very strong revenue trend with the sales tax. And that's the main item right now in terms of revenue. Most of the other accounts, the parking revenue is solid, it's consistent, it's in line with where it's been in the past. Same as building permit fees are slightly under, they usually pick up later in the year. But once again, I think the story right now is sales tax and dealing with that large positive variance there and how we work that budgetarily. But I will be speaking later tonight about the utilization of excess fund balance from 2021. Mayor and I have some ideas as to utilize some of the fund balance to make sure that the city stays in compliance with our fund balance policy. So I'll be presenting that in a little while. All right.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John? Comments on the budget?
Great. It's good. It's a good problem to have. And what we're dealing with is common for municipalities across the state. When they developed their 2021 budgets, most municipalities were, if you think about going back in time, it seems like a long time ago, but it's July, August, September 2020. We're in the midst of the pandemic. So the 2021 budgets, for the most part, most municipalities were very conservative, some a lot more than others. And even when we developed the 2022 budget, if you recall, there's still a lot of uncertainty in the economy. So a lot of those worst case scenarios have not panned out. In fact, in terms of revenue, it's been almost all good news. There's been certainly other issues with housing, inflation, and other costs, but in terms of the city budget, The revenue side of this is outpace the expenditure side, which is a good thing for our budget. A good problem to have, right? We have some plans stuff.
I just have one question.
Great. There's a little bit of an echo, and the Andrea shot window here doesn't seem to be muted. There we go. Thank you. Sorry, does somebody have a comment or question? Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you. What is the equipment rental such a high percentage of earnings?
A lot of that equipment rental, I'd have to dig in, but I believe some of this is what we came to the council with as part of the storm. I know they had some rental for taking trees down, et cetera. I think that's mainly in the public works.
Thank you.
Well, and one thing that's not on here too, they're still trying to measure some quotes, but the road salt budget, public works is it's going to need some help later in the year, so that's going to be another item on there. Lots of some it's doesn't offset all the sales tax.
Something.
All right. I think we can move on to the items, numbered items in the agenda here. The first one is budget transfer and building and safety. This is for retirement, an unexpected retirement. There would be zero financial impact. So are there any questions on this one? If not, then is there a motion to discuss? Mike Olivieri, second.
Second.
Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? 3-0. Thank you for that. The second item here is John Toohey's employment renewal contract. It's a standard operation here to get these things hammered out well in advance of their previous closing date. It's a contract, basically the same contract that he's working under right now. And the difference would be that the current salary is $128,533. But as it says in there, we'd start with his base salary and then go, what?
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss.
Let me just give the overview and then we can do that. Okay. And the financial, and there would be a 2.25% increase per year as there is now. All right. So basically this would start, if approved as is, June 6th, 2023. All right. So Michelle Hirsch, you have a motion to go into executive session for what purpose?
Discuss the contract employee.
To discuss an employee contract. Is there a second? Mike Olivieri. All right. All in favor then?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then we need to go into executive session. I need contact numbers. Or if someone could just call me.
Video. And we're recording.
All right, Steve Shabbat, could you read the committee report?
I will. Request for John Toohey's contract to be renewed according to the same terms as the current contract for the period 7/15/23 through June 14th, 29.
Do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion?
Second.
First, second by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion?
Could you just repeat those dates just so John can double check to make sure that those are accurate?
Did you
Just
hear
one more
what
time.
I said?
No, I did not, I'm sorry.
July 15th, 23.
22. Should be 22. This
But
year.
your contract ends in 23.
Right.
Oh, well, if it can be done that way, I mean, it's fine.
And it should be June.
29 then, right?
Through June 14th.
I think it's June 7th, right? I think
Yeah,
it's-
June 7th.
Yeah, June 7th, 2023, it ends.
What is that, June, starting
Yeah, starting June 7th
June 7th?
of 2023.
So I should change the dates on this.
June 11th.
Just right, 6/7/23.
And then the end would be when?
Communication says
So that
June
would be
14th.
ending, we had 6/14, but it will actually be ending, what, 6/6?
29.
6/6/29. But then there would be a new contract that would be able to be executed now would carry through that time frame, right? Barbara, is that, the mayor then could execute a contract if and when this is approved by the common council, that would extend my contract through 6/6/29.
Okay,
That's
that's
correct, right?
consistent with the same terms in terms of time.
Okay, good.
All right. All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes 3-0.
Yes.
Next item is, the police union contract memorandum of agreement. John, did you have something you wanted to hand out to folks?
I did. So this is for internal use only. This is just a summary of the significant financial components of the agreement. Do you want me to go in and just elaborate on, just to give you a nutshell, the base wage schedule increases are 3% for January, effective January 1, 2020, 3% January 1, 21, 4% January 1st, 2022, 3.5% January 1, 2023, 3.25% January 1st, 24, 3% January 1st, 2025. There's also a increase in health insurance contributions of $200 a year. So I've costed the benefit of those out. The total cost of the contract over the 6 years is, and this is approximate, 6.3 million. Keep in mind that, this is due to the compounding of the raises. Also, just everyone, just for informational purposes, our current contract ended December 31st, 2019. So the salaries in the 2022 budget are based on those 19 levels. So this provides for 2020 raise, a 21 raise, a 22 raise, all the way up through 2025. When we're doing the 2023 budget, you're basically going to pick up 4 years of raises from 20 through 23. We have been putting money aside in contingency, knowing that a contract is coming. The pickup for next year's budget is going to be in the vicinity of $700,000 to $800,000 that we're going to have to say fine, but account for, there'll be an increase in spending, for next year's budget. But, based on some of the numbers I've already given you in the other areas, I think we can work that in, so.
So that, sorry, just for simplicity's sake for me, let's say 2021 and 22 equated to $15. So in 23, they'll just get that bulk 15 of what it would have been per year all in one.
So I guess maybe if you look at, it's 3%, 4%, right? Right, and then next year's 3.5%. So if someone's salary was, a certain dollar amount, so when you see that person's salary in the 2023 budget, you're gonna have to take the salary that's in the 22 budget, multiply it by 1.03 times 1.03 times 1.04 times 1.035. So it's basically, in that case, like 13.5% compounded raises for 4 years.
Okay.
Right? It ends up being a number over 13.5. It's just through the compounding, right? So, but I mean, the mayor can elaborate more, but I do think in the economic conditions we're in, I think this is a fair contract financially for both sides. I think, the numbers worked out for KPBA. I think they work for the city. I recommend that you approve the contract. Sure.
Okay, any questions on these numbers? Any questions to John Toohey?
I have a question. SUPEC, retirement, does this affect anyone's retirement retroactively?
So if someone did retire, they would be entitled to this is retro, right? Right, so, a retiree who separated service, from the city since the inception of this contract would be entitled to a payment of retro pay. And yes, that could, positively benefit their retirement system, monthly payment. But once again, that's something New York State Retirement will work out.
Right.
And we have to report all this information to New York State Retirement, then they do the calculations on, the monthly benefits. But yeah, that's a good question. These payments are payable to anyone who worked for under that contract during this time frame.
All right, any other questions? In that case, can we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Motion by Michael Olivieri, seconded by Michelle Hirsch. So is there any discussion specifically on the numbers that John provided? All right, is there any discussion that anyone wants to undertake in executive session? Hearing none, then I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Contract is approved by this committee, 3-0. Next, we move to item number 4, which is page 20 of the agenda. These are, this is a request for $300,000 to repair the wall back there on West Strand. So I believe Mayor Noble, you're ready to present on this one?
I am, and after speaking with Corporation Counsel and the potential for, litigation around this issue, I'd like to be able to take this conversation into executive session to be able to have this about this wall.
All right,
Like to make a motion to go into an executive session to discuss the wall.
it has to be, there has to be a reason, not just discuss the wall. Barbara, what's the category this would fall under?
So this is a concern about potential litigation.
So the motion is to go into executive session to discuss potential litigation. Motion by Michelle Hirsch. Is there a second?
Second.
Michael Olivieri, second. All in favor? All right, then, we are going into executive session to discuss litigation. I'll call in here in just a second.
Then just. Ready, you there? There it is. Hello.
Yes, for my numbers here.
All right, are we ready?
I think we're all back yet.
All right. So I believe we are going to just put the wall repair fund question onto old business to reconsider at the July finance meeting. All right, got that, Dee?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Thank you. So the next item is the budget transfer from contingency into the clerk's budget. This is page 23 of the agenda for today. It's a request for $4,794 to pay for microphone repairs. Is there any discussion, or rather any questions here?
Is it a
Sorry, what?
is there a warranty on the repair?
Probably
Uh,
a tile question.
Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion, questions there rather? Okay, is there a motion to consider?
Motion.
Michael, second.
I'll second.
All right. The report reads requesting a 2022 transfer from contingency to common council maintenance of equipment budget in the amount of $4,794 to cover the expense of microphone repairs in chambers. Is there a motion to discuss?
Did you make a motion? Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Listen, what?
I made a motion.
Huh?
I made a motion.
We made the
Motion,
motion.
motion.
Made the
Michael
motion,
made the
okay.
motion, I'll second it.
Yeah.
All right, good. We'll stop getting ahead of me. All right, then, is there any discussion?
No, who's off there for a second?
I'm glad they're back.
Any discussion?
No.
No.
All right, then we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes 3-0. We now move on to item number 6, which is page 25 of the agenda. This is the Recreational Trails Program grant funds. I see that Ruth Ann is here to give us an overview. Hello, Ruth Ann.
Hello, how are you?
Good, tell us what's happening.
Well, this is a resolution that is required in order to execute a grant contract with the Parks, Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation. And it's a 2019 award for the Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2. But in order to execute the contract, they require a resolution in which we're accepting the funds. So that's kind of the brief overview. As soon as we have this resolution and a couple of other documents, we'll be able to finalize that contract and apply the funds to the Phase 2 project.
And can you clarify for new folks exactly what Phase 2 means?
Phase 1 is Kingston Point Rail Trail beginning at the Jansen Street trailhead, which extends down to the rundown apartments at Garrigan. And it ends right at that point in the middle of the bridge where it stops, and then the actual train tracks continue on. So Phase 1 is the completed portion that was done in 2019. Phase 2 will continue on. At the moment, the design plan is for it to continue on behind the Trolley Museum and out to West Strand Street. And then it'll pick up as phase 3 from there.
Great, and eventually go all the way out to Kingston Point, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions for Ruth Ann on this issue?
When do we expect the work to begin? Is it just like, we're just asking just because every time, we have all these projects, then it takes a while to get
Yeah, we don't have
motion,
any.
then they go up in
Yeah,
price.
it's a slow pace for a lot of these large projects. What we're looking at right now is pulling out one component of phase 2 that can be done more quickly. So we're hoping to have the designs finished for that this year, and construction would probably happen next year. And we're also applying for a raise grant. We did submit that application and we're waiting to hear in August whether we win that one.
Okay.
And this would tie into that as well.
Great. Then do we have a motion to discuss
Motion.
and a second? Michelle Hirsch motioned.
Second.
Do you want to arm wrestle for it? Michael Olivieri seconds. All right, any discussion here?
Well,
All right.
I think this trail is great and I could fully support it and look forward to it getting completed.
Great. So the committee report reads, authorizing the mayor to accept recreational trails program funds in the amount of $250,000 from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for the Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2 project, and to execute any and all related documents. The grant carries a 10% match requirement of $62,500, which will be fulfilled through another grant, force account, or if necessary, bonding to be requested. The total project cost is $312,500 at this point. The estimated financial impact ultimately would be to be determined. All right. In that case, I'll call for the vote. If there's no discussion, no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Motion passes. We now move on to item number 7. These are a series of Dri Small Grants. So Ruth Ann, if you will tell us what these are here up in the Stockade area.
Yes, this is part of our $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative Award that we won from the state in 2017. And a portion of it, $600,000, was set aside to assist home and business owners in the Stockade Business District. We did already launch the first portion of it, which is small grants to micro businesses. We'll be selecting 12 different businesses to each receive $5,000 towards expenses. And then there are 2 other segments that have not yet begun. We're still working on the details of how both of those programs will function. We're working with Ulster County. This is our first project under the shared services agreement with the county for economic development. So it's a little bit of a test program in a sense, in that some of the details they've operated similar programs under with other communities. And we do expect probably to get them both underway within the next 1 to 2 months. So I think that's about it.
Great. Any questions for Ruth Ann? All right.
I have a question. Just when
Go
would
ahead.
this project end? When would like the grants be awarded or like it all
Well,
finished out?
The first portion will be awarded within the next month or so. The other 2, the programs haven't actually started yet, and they're a little bit more complicated. One requires environmental reviews, so we have to kind of work with construction seasons and look at each project individually. It'll take a little bit more time. So we're hoping to be able to do some construction under the second two programs this year, but the program will probably be finished next year.
All right. The report reads, authorizing the mayor to expend funds in the first instance for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Grant number 201800136 from the New York State Office of Homes and Community Renewal, the amount of $600,000 for the DRI Stockade Business District Small Grants Program. No local match is required. The total project cost is $600,000, and thus the estimated financial impact to the city is $0. All right. I'm sorry, did we do motions already?
Motion.
Second.
Second. All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wonderful, thank you. Next, we're going to move to item number 8, which is the budget transfer for the small grants. This is page 31. In essence, now that we've approved the money, we have to move the money. Ruth Ann, anything to say about this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The committee report reads, this is a request to transfer DRI Stockade Business District Small Grants Program funds in the amount of $600,000 from A16990.3389 New York State Grant to A16990.5472 Contracted Services. No local match is required. Estimated financial impact, $0. All right, Michael?
I was motioning.
Yes, Michael motion.
Second.
Seconds. All right, if there's no discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 3-0. Great, thank you, Ruth Ann. Now we move to item number 9, which is a request to expend funds from the CARES funding to enable the Kingston Fire Department to develop a mobile mental health co-response team. Ruth Ann, are you speaking to this one also?
I am, and Chris is also here. You may want to add some information.
Great.
This is an award we just won last week. It's a special CDBG CARES grant, and it's a one-time opportunity, actually. The concept is to develop a special program that's based in Kingston for Kingston residents, in which a team of a social worker and an emergency worker will work together to respond to emergency calls for assistance when people are in crisis. And the purpose is to try to help people avoid going to the hospital when they don't really need to, or being arrested because of their behavior. So this will be dedicated just to Kingston. In that sense, it's different than what the county already does, but we're working in conjunction with the county and developing the model for it in this first year, which is a pilot program here. Chris, would you like to add anything?
No, that's pretty much it. It's a pilot program, and once we get it going, then pretty much we got 1 year to create numbers, find out what the actual numbers are going to be, what the actual expenditures are going to be, before we plan on moving on to the second year with it. So this is it's all rough guesstimate on the numbers, and as far as the number of calls, the number of patients that we would be transporting, we have to start someplace in order to create a good database. So it's just something we want to continue. We want to build further on, build bigger. So this would be housed in the Kingston Fire Department, run with a Kingston firefighter EMT and a social worker from Ulster County.
Okay.
That's how they run. If the call goes to 911, 911 dispatchers are trained to basically determine whether it's a violent or a non-violent. A non-violent call, we get sent within the city, we get sent, the bus would get sent. And the send, meaning that we're just gonna do, it's called code 1, we're not gonna light the siren, we're just gonna drive it to the neighborhood, to the address. And then the healthcare worker is gonna, talk to the individual and so forth and so on, if they deem that they need to go to the hospital, then we'll transport that person to the hospital. But in order to do transport, we have to have an ambulance which is certified under New York State Department of Health. And that's where an expenditure comes in, startup expenditure, now the numbers. The ambulance is only for Kingston. We're not running out into the counties to do a mental health call. If it's a violent call, the KPD will go to it. Then if KPD deems that the situation is now calm, then they'll call us, and we'll go, and we'll transport with the KPD officer, on board, with the health worker on board.
Actually, that was gonna be my question, whether this is gonna be a joint effort.
It's a joint effort between fire department, police department, and Ulster County Mental Health.
Part of the funding is going to be used for training, so if the police officers and the 911 dispatchers will receive special training to be able to identify the appropriate response. So in other words, they'll either direct it to the mobile mental health team, or they'll send a police response or emergency response.
Is there a lead agency?
Well, it's under the fire department's jurisdiction, and we are going to be working potentially with a consulting firm that specializes in this kind of response and training. That's not determined just yet, but the county does work with a nonprofit organization called Access for Living, and we may be able to model our program after what they're doing there to a degree.
Okay. Now, does this cover this grant money? Does this cover the training?
Yes.
And how long is the training?
I don't know the length of time for the training, but there's training. We do have a consulting fee in there. We have fire department staff, the vehicle itself, which Chris has been exploring the possibility of purchasing a used vehicle because he feels strongly that we don't need a brand new vehicle for this project. But all of those expenses are included in the budget.
Great. All right. Sounds like a good idea.
So what this will actually do is alleviate KPD being tied up with the patient and waiting for an ambulance to come. It'll alleviate that, alleviate a fire. If KPD turfs it off that needs medical, then a fire department gets called. And if there's still not an ambulance available, then the fire department is tied up. That piece of equipment is now tied up for 10, 15, 20 minutes. So this kind of alleviates some of the burden on emergency service, being KPD and KFD, by providing this ambulance and this form of transportation. And the used ambulance is because it's only in the city. So we're only going 3 miles to the west, or 3 miles to the east. That's all we're going, which is as far as the city goes. And then transport it to, I'll be over to Benedictine once they get that up and running. So it's a win-win, but it's a grant, minimal put out to see how it's going to go. What is the call volume going to turn out to be in actuality? And you get our feet wet in this process. And if it's happening, if everybody benefits from it after 1 year's time, then it's up. We'll be back again to discuss the continuation of it.
Okay.
I have a question. So it'll be an EMT or a paramedic?
EMT.
Okay, so if it's like a drug situation or an overdose, you still need a backup, like?
No, there's a control for a paramedic.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
No, go ahead, Barbara, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just one comment before the vote. Reddy, I don't know if you are also counting your own votes, which you can do since there is a quorum here present.
Oh. Okay. Ian?
I just have one more of a statement ready. I would like to suggest some additional language to the committee report. The language would be the last sentence, there would be a sentence added that says the grant will be administered in the Community Development Fund, in parentheses CD fund. It's a requirement as it's a CDBG grant, even though it'll be administered by the city. From an accounting standpoint, it's really accounting ease here, that we have to account for it in the CD fund, not in the general fund. So the next committee report I'm going to request gets pulled. We'll not need to do a committee report for budget transfer. I just need a committee report that we will administer in the CD fund. And this conversation I had with our auditors today. I'm fine.
Great, I think everybody's fine with you adding that language. While John's doing that, do we have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Second.
Michelle Hirsch motion, Steve Shabbat second. Great, and then Steve Shabbat, can you read the revised committee report?
Certainly will. Okay, authorizing the mayor to expend funds in the first instance for the CDBG CV grant number 599-CBPS71-22 in the amount of $321,000 and $321,034 for the City of Kingston Mobile Mental Health Co-Response Team Pilot Program. No local match is required. The grant will be administered by the Community Development CD Fund.
Great, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
I just had another question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, what are benchmarks then that we're gonna be like looking at as far as like then keeping it another year?
Well, that is something that, the consultant, which we hope to engage, will develop, a system for, assessing. So it's a little bit of an unknown at this point from our standpoint, what that will look like, but that would be part of the goal, is that they create a whole metric system of, being able to assess effectiveness.
All right. In that case, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Unanimous. Then we move to the next item, which, as the one before, is to transfer the funds now that they've been approved. John, does any language need to be added to this?
Brady, this is the one I suggest pulling. We don't need to pass this now.
Okay.
Okay.
In that case, we will delete this one from the agenda and not consider. All right, that moves us then to item 11, which is in fact many items regarding the New York State Consolidated funding applications. These start at page 39. I'm just wondering, if I could ask Barbara, each of these has a committee report, but I'm wondering, can we vote on the 8 items in a package, or do we need to go through and vote on each one individually?
So I think you've done that in the past, where after everyone confirmed that they had reviewed a series of transactions or requests that were substantially the same, you voted on them as a block. So I think if they are the same and everyone confirms that they have familiarized themselves, then there's no problem with that.
Okay, great. So I think then what we'll do, if it's okay with the committee members, Ruth Ann, if you can present each of these and we'll have questions. If everyone is okay with them as they're written, then we'll vote on them as a block if everyone is agreed. Is that okay with everyone there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, great. So Ruth Ann, if you'll start with number 1 regarding the Dietz Stadium upgrades.
yes, well, we have a total of.
Oh,
six-
I'm sorry, Ruth Ann. I'm sorry, Ruth Ann. Can you help new folks to the process understand what the consolidated funding applications are?
Yes, absolutely. The consolidated funding application is an annual grant opportunity that the state hosts. And it has typically been happening in July every year. The round opens in May and it closes this year on July 29th. So what we do when the guidelines come out is take a look at all the different funding opportunities that there are. And we assess what kinds of programs we already have or projects that we need funding for and how they may or may not fit into what's being offered each year. This year, we have identified 6 different projects that fit with the guidelines for different programs in the CFA opportunity list. So what we typically do is come to the Common Council at the beginning of the process to let you know what it is we'd like to apply for. And then we begin with the actual work. So we've done some very preliminary outlines for each project. And with your approval, we'll move forward and flesh out all the details, including the budget numbers and what the actual project will look like in the application. So for tonight, what I'd like to, oh, go ahead.
So Michael, do you have any questions about this process, about what's going on here?
No, I mean, you did a good job explaining it, so.
Okay, yeah, just the main thing is that none of this is approving any money. It's approving the grant process to go forward.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ruth Ann.
Okay, so the first one is the Dietz Stadium upgrades. We're calling it phase 3A. We've identified different elements on the stadium side that need to be corrected that are beyond the stadium structure itself and the main structures. So phase 3A would include many different components focusing on the basketball court, the signs, practice field, and there was one other main, the press box. Those were the 3 main elements that we wanted to apply for this grant. We do already have the approved bonding from the Common Council, but if we win an additional grant, it'll help us reduce the cost to taxpayers and reduce that bonding amount. So that's the first one. That's to the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation under their Parks program. Then the second one is also the same agency, but it's under their Heritage Area program, which means that if a project falls within the Heritage Area in Kingston, it can qualify for this particular program. And there are only 2 heritage areas in the Mid-Hudson Regional District, which means our competition is a little bit less. So what we've identified for this one is following up on many years of requests for a skate park. And there have been staff who have worked hard with community members to figure out where a skate park could work. And the consensus is that Hasbrook Park has a good location and it's within the heritage area. So that again is the same amount of money. I didn't mention in the beginning that we always request the maximum amount that you're allowed to for each grant. And that's what we're basing these figures on. Then the third one is through the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, and it's for a refrigerant management plan. And what this is it's a sustainability project in which we would develop a long-term plan to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions from refrigerants. And refrigerants come from things like HVAC, window air conditioning, refrigerators, vehicles, other types of things. And they actually are, they trap heat more than other types of greenhouse gases. So this would help us develop a disposal plan and an education plan and work with the community so that they understand what the effects are and how they can dispose properly of refrigerants. And that one is a lower cost because it's a planning document, but it'll take us into the future and help us with next steps in trying to manage the issue. The next two are both through the Environmental Facilities Corporation. We're permitted to apply for as many grants under this as we would like. We've narrowed it to two because you do have to prioritize, so we don't want to be competing against ourselves too much. So the maximum request is $100,000, and we decided to go for two planning grants for the wastewater treatment plant and the sanitary sewer system for the pump stations to identify where issues are, where equipment is beyond its useful life or is failing and causing a lot of expensive repair work that could be avoided if we can upgrade the equipment. So the planning grants will help us figure out exactly what the needs are, and that will take us to the next step for next year when we can actually apply to implement the work. So that's number 4 is for the pump stations. Number 5 is for the wastewater treatment plant. Then the last one is a brownfields program, which we already know in Midtown that there are brownfield areas. And this grant would be, it'll fund the development of a planning document that will include an analysis of all of the data and other background information that we already have for Midtown. And once it's finished, it will enable us to be nominated for the next step, which is a full designation of Midtown as a brownfield opportunity area. That therefore, from there, opens opportunities for funding to actually do assessments and remediation. So that's pretty much the description of that one too. And that's all. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mention community groups. I'm not sure if anyone from RUPCO or the Rear Center has logged on, you know?
No.
No? Okay. I'll speak on their behalf. RUPCO is requesting endorsement from the city for a grant to the New York Main Street program for a economic development program along the Broadway corridor, in which they'll support businesses with grants to do facade work or interior work. And it's not limited to businesses, it can also be used for residential. There will be a match involved. It says the program covers 75%, the match is 25% for building owners. But RUPCO is working to try to identify other sources that can help the building owners cover that 25% match. At this point, they haven't fully identified what those opportunities might be, but they're looking for that. And that program will cover the entire length of Broadway.
All the way down to this track.
Yeah. And they've been very successful with Main Street grants in the past and run similar programs before. So it's a really wonderful program. And then the Rear Center is applying to the Office of Parks and Recreation for Parks grant for their main building on Broadway to do exterior work, including repairing the roof and doing facade work, repointing the masonry and other repairs. So that's a very important project as well. So if you have any questions, I think those are all of our resolutions for this year's CFA.
That'll work.
That's for sure.
Great. Thank you for that overview. Yeah. So then the question is, do we have a motion to consider these 8 items under the New York Consolidated funding applications as one item for voting?
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Steve Shabbat. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Great. The vote is unanimous. We move to item number 12, which is page 61 in the agenda.
Randy, I have one question.
Sure.
There was one other resolution, I just wanted to make sure, I didn't see it on the agenda, the rescue equipment. Does it say rescue equipment?
Is that
Yes, it's the DASME.
Dormitory Authority? Okay. So this came in separately, June 3, 2022. Dormitory Authority equipment, utility terrain vehicle. Good. Does everybody have a copy of that? It came in our emails this afternoon, I think it was.
I have it.
Okay. Ruth Ann, then if you could give us an overview of that one.
Okay, I think Chris didn't realize it was on the agenda. It's actually his project, but I can tell you about it. The fire department applied for a grant last fall or last summer, and we were just awarded $56,000 to purchase a UTV for accessing trails in our parks, and a rescue boat with fully equipped with specialty items that they need to dive, and diving gear, suits, and other types of equipment that will live with the boat. And he was very eager, especially because we have the new state park that isn't really fully constructed. And there are a lot of visitors coming to that park and going off in areas that aren't official trails just yet. So the UTV will help give access where regular trucks or other types of full-size vehicles wouldn't be able to navigate. So the request is to approve spending the funds so that he can get going with the purchases.
Great. And so are there any questions to Ruth Ann on that one? The committee report reads, authorizing the mayor to expend funds in the first instance for the DASNY grant in the amount of $56,046 for specialty rescue equipment for the fire department. No local match is required. The total project cost is $56,046 with an estimated financial impact of $0. Any questions for Ruth Ann? Hearing none, then I'll call for a motion to consider.
Motion.
Second.
Del Hirsch makes the motion. Mike Olivieri seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you for reminding us of that one there, Ruth Ann.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Okay.
And thanks for all you do. We know it's a lot of work getting in there with all those numbers, searching out these grants. And
Thank you
you
for your
know,
patience. It was a kind of a lot that I brought to you tonight, so I appreciate it.
where we're glad we could provide you with a spacious office to do it in. All right, thank you though. All right, then item number 12, which is page, oops,
Wait, one second, we have one.
That was, I think that, oh wait, I'm not sure what that one is. Which one?
I asked her, she was leaving, and I asked her about 16.
I'm not sure what 16 is.
16?
16, 16.
16, yeah. 16.
Where do you see that?
Number 6.
Number,
On the paper that's on the desk here.
Oh, maybe that's something Lisa did. Hold on with that one.
Well, let me just,
or could that have been the one that we were just talking about?
DASME is, it made a mistake with that because it's federal is on down, but CDBG is federal, so. I might have gotten that one mixed up. Otherwise, we don't have another federal.
Well, that's one for Sam, number 16. Do you know, she doesn't know what that one is?
No, I mean, CDBG is the federal. And the recreational trails technically is federal also. I think we covered everything on that. I just-
Well, do you want us,
I downloaded this.
do you want us to just pass a blank resolution that you can use however you want to?
Oh, that would be great.
Is that something you said, Lisa sent around today? Because it helped out?
I'm gonna look on the agenda.
I looked on the agenda and it ends at 14.
That's on my tab, but then.
And then we got
you
the
just have to
Daphne
go on,
separate.
I'll pull up the one online. Yeah, the one online right now still says 14.
But is there an additional?
Oh, maybe,
Yeah, 15.
There was one additional one that came in, and that was the DASNY. There was,
oh, you know what it is? It's the, it's transferring. Oh, that's what it is.
But the question was it
I
circular?
have one here that
Doesn't matter.
they have done transferring DASNY grant.
That's fine.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say. It might be, it's just transferring, it's not just the resolution, it's transferring the funds.
Online, it just has to.
Yeah, that's what I said, just looked up.
okay, yeah, further down that same email, I see there's another committee report, and that must be what 16 is, because it's just calling to to transfer the funds.
Yes, for the DASNY grant.
Okay, so that committee report reads, this is the request to transfer funds from federal assistance A13410.4589, the DASNY grant, totaling $56,046 to 3410.21, estimated financial impact $0. Do we have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch makes the motion.
Seen it and received it? Just in case there's any questions, since it wasn't posted ahead of time.
Well, I received it because we were emailing it. So.
Yeah, and I received it as well.
Okay. And
Do we have a second?
Did I make the motion?
Michelle made the motion.
You made a
I
motion?
made the motion.
This is the DASNY grant, right?
Yeah, it's to transfer.
Scroll. I shouldn't see that.
Anybody second? It's a second?
No.
One of this.
Okay, all right.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That one's unanimous too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. All right, then we're moving on to item number 12. This is a budget transfer for the comptroller. It's one in the agenda.
This is a zero impact, just an internal transfer to get, my accounts, the unofficial term is cleaned up through current, just moving money back and forth between where we need it. Obviously, we're running into, a need for vehicle maintenance. We are parking enforcement, we're doing some enforcement in different areas with public works that's required a little more overtime. So I'm asking for funding for that as well as vehicle fuel. And I mentioned earlier tonight, some of the overages that we're going to see in different departments there. So I'm asking for a little bit more money in vehicle fuel, but there's zero financial impact overall.
Great. So the committee report reads, request the attached 2022 mid-year budgetary transfer totaling $16,650 to balance the comptroller's office accounts on a year-to-date basis. Is there a motion to consider?
Motion. Second.
Michael Olivieri, seconded by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? In that case, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We move to item number 13, utilization of excess fund balance. John, do you want to consider this one first or item 14 first?
It probably would make sense to take number 14 first and then step back to number 13 because 13 is really based upon the information I'm going to be providing you with 14.
Item 14 then starts on page 66 of the published agenda.
Thanks, Rennie. So as you all know, every month I come and give updates on the finances of the city. During 2021 and even into 2022, I was giving updates on 2021 figures. We have a state report that we send in every year. It's basically our internal financial statement that's due to this New York State on or about May 1st of each year. We recently completed that report for 2021. Our figures are still subject to independent audit. Our auditors are starting our audit now. But I wanted to give you just an overview. There's no action the council has to take on this. This is more just for informational purposes. As I've mentioned throughout, 2021 into 2022, our 2021 results were very favorable. I mentioned earlier tonight how strong our sales tax was. Our sales tax was nearly $4 million over the 2021 budget was $3.9 million over. Originally, we had anticipated that our state funding was going to be cut, our 8 municipalities, otherwise known as AIM. That was the messaging that we had received early on in COVID. Those cuts ended up getting reversed and we ended up receiving our full allotment. So that was over $600,000 of funding that we had anticipated being cut that did not get cut. You all know what's happening in the housing market. Well, we receive a share of the mortgage tax, which is a percentage of the mortgages that are closed in Ulster County. Our revenue was over $800,000 stronger due to that. And then we also received almost $400,000 in FEMA revenue just in the general fund. So that tsunami of unexpected revenues, created very favorable results for 2021. Our fund balance now sits at, because our spending went up in 2022 budget, our fund balance as a percentage did not creep up a lot, but it is at 21.86% of our 2022 budget expenditures. This is as of December 31st, 2021. Our fund balance policy calls for the city to take action when a fund balance exceeds 20% of the following year's expenditures. I calculate the action that this city has to take is just under $900,000. That being said, my next recommendation is going to be more than that because I did just, earlier tonight update you on how strong sales tax is going this year. I don't want to be trying to avoid this whole dog catching its tail kind of thing with this fund balance, right? Because as we're taking actions to bring down the fund balance in accordance with the policy, if in the current year we're experiencing very favorable results again, we're going to be kind of in that cycle. So I've communicated this to the mayor. I do recommend that we start looking at matters in which we can utilize the fund balance according to the policy, which is generally it's to pay off debt, pay-as-you-go capital assets, anything unanticipated expenditure, a one-time expenditure. It's items that would not create a recurring cost for the future, right? You don't want to fund a new program then have to budget for that in future, right? So we're doing two things. We're trying to bring the fund balance down to a responsible, we set as a responsible level under the policy. And two, preferably the actions we take will save taxpayer money by reducing interest costs on borrowings. It'll reduce our debt and it'll produce budgetary savings, because if we pay off debt or we pay for capital out of pocket rather than borrowing for it, it's less that we have to budget for in the future. So in the next item on the agenda, I'm going to be detailing that, but I believe this is going to be the first step of some different actions I think the council should take. The mayor is preparing another communication soon to use fund balance for some paving work, is my understanding, later this year, depending on how we continue to track this year with sales tax and other receipts. I will likely come back with another communication to use fund balance, potentially to pay off other capital assets that we have not paid for yet, but we'll have paid for it by that time later in the year, right? So we have some purchase orders outstanding on some items that we have approved for bonding, we haven't spent yet, and we haven't bonded for. So when I go to bond in August, I'm going to leave those out in anticipation I come back to the council, potentially use some fund balance to pay off those. And when we do this, we always target, to the extent we can, assets with the shortest lives to match, the 3-year assets, the 5-year assets. There will be some assets that are a little higher, but we target the shortest lived assets that we can to maximize the benefit for our current taxpayers. So that's it. That's the report on 2021. Like I said, it's subject to audit. Our auditors will be in shortly. We're working on getting information for them. They'll have that audit wrapped up by the end of September, hopefully earlier. But in terms of changes, I typically they haven't had much any substantial changes to fund balance. I mean, it's always possible, but do recommend that there's action that we're going to take. I don't see that number changing a whole lot where we would be requesting further action. All right. Thank you. Ready for the next item?
Do you want to then go ahead and discuss the actual apportionment that you're suggesting?
Sure. Yeah, that's the next item. That's the agenda item that would require action by the council. My next communication is essentially to use nearly $1.5 million of fund balance, $1,484,000 and change, for two different things that are both in accordance with our fund balance policy. The first item is a transfer to capital projects in the amount of $859,132.11, and what that's going to do is pay off equipment and vehicles that we've purchased that were approved for bonding so that we do not have to borrow for those items. Okay, that's the first item. The second item is $625,000 of fund balance to actually pay off short-term debt that's coming due in August. And the majority of that will be for similar type items, for equipment, vehicles. So once again, we have a short-term note that's coming due in August. Our choices would be to pay some of that off. There's a statutory amount we have to pay off, but this would be additional. If we don't elect to pay this off, then we will end up rolling it into a longer term note. So, this makes sense. Let's pay it off. And that will reduce, when we go to bond in August, that will reduce our future debt service payments and lower interest costs for our taxpayers. So, and both actions will lower debt service and interest costs for our taxpayers, right? One is avoiding borrowing in the first place, and one is paying off debt that's already been issued before it goes to long-term. All right.
Great. Any questions for John on that?
Good ideas, John.
Thank you.
All right, the committee report reads, recommend the following transfer from fund balance per communication dated 6/2/22 from fund balance A19999.19.5901 in the amount of $1,484,132.11 to transfers to capital projects A19905.19.5901 in the amount of $859,132.11 to BAN principal A19950.19.5906 in the amount of $625,000 for a total of $1,484,132.11, which would also be the estimated financial impact. All right, do we have a motion to consider?
Motion.
There's a motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. In that case, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. Excellent. All right, that's all that I have. Is there anything else anybody has to discuss this evening? All right, in that case, I will consider that there has been a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting as well as a vote. We'll consider the meeting called to a close here. What time is it over there? 8:36. 8:36 on June 8th. All right, thank you for your patience. And I appreciate the work that you all do. And we will see you soon.
Thank you, Rennie.
Thanks, Rennie.
Thanks, Ryan.